Hi, this is Ashley Wells, and I'm going to be doing an article review on the article titled, Should Schools Embrace Bring Your Own Device? This was found on the neatoday.org and was published in 2012. I particularly found this article interesting and intriguing to read and think about because it did bring out some of the pros and cons to the BYOD initiative that is happening in many schools across our country. And I did like how, it didn't just see it from one side. It did look at both sides of it and really made you think, as the title entails, should schools embrace this bring your own device initiative that's happening? As the article began, it did discuss the Bring Your Own Device, which is the BYOD. Some schools are calling it the BYOT, Bring Your Own Technology, Bring Your Own Device, and mentioned Ohio, Minnesota, Texas, and Georgia were some of the states across the country that have already piloted and taken onto account the task of the Bring Your Own Device in their schools. These are not the only states at this time, and I would say that mostly this initiative starts with the high school, middle school, probably seeing it in some elementary classrooms. You just don't read about that as much. Here, the issue, I guess, that they're kind of asking is the fact that, are schools asking for students to bring their own device because they can't afford the devices for the students in a world of technology where technology needs to be in the hands and it's inevitable that the kids are going to be needing it for their education? Is the question now. Schools are lacking funds, and so now they're requiring students to bring their own device. Again, I like that because it did leave me with a question in my own mind as to, is that why this initiative has taken off? Gave a really good example here of an actual teacher, which again is always nice to read and hear about. Shelley Goldbergus, who is an actual physics teacher. So again, we're talking at a high school level here in Ohio, and she does use the Bring Your Own Device. Their whole school does. She talked about how she uses the flipped classroom, and students will then watch her podcast and come to school with their questions, or come to school, they'll be doing their actual homework. She called it their lower level thinking would be happening at home, and then their homework they would bring that to school and work on that with her there in the classroom. Again, the Bring Your Own Device, the tools are there for the students, so if she wanted them to rewatch a video or she wanted them to be doing something, they have their own device. And as she called it, I liked here, as she stated, that there's never an excuse to be idle. Very good point as a teacher to make, she says, because there's always information available. And with technology, yeah, there's always information available. What I believe, and what the article also stated, allows for her school to be successful with the Bring Your Own Device initiative, is that, for one, they're now using these phones, these devices that constantly, I couldn't even imagine at a high school level that they're constantly telling the students to put away, or they're banning, or the students are continuously bringing out, but they're now using them for education. I do see power in that. And with the issues at hand, she did address here how teachers were trained, how the wireless networks were installed, and how there were workshops to show teachers how the use of the devices, which I think is absolutely crucial if you are going to make this work in a school. I just don't see it working unless you are supporting the teachers and educating them on how to use the devices in the classroom. I would see a lot of frustration and a lot of maybe question marks go up if the teachers are not educated in these devices. Then it kind of went on to say, yes, again, positives. Here are some things, some good things that are happening. But then they also have that, students do have to sign these agreements that they will only use this device during class time. That's crucial. Your policies to get that in hand and get that in the hands of the students so they know what's happening. Also, they're students. They do know a lot about technology and getting around the websites, that they will be able to get around some of the websites blocked, which again would be in your policies statement and how you would address that. But also knowing at hand how, as a teacher, you need to manage that. Again, I believe that falls back into the workshops and the training in the BYOD in the classroom and how and what that would look like. In this article, the Shelley Goldbergus, the teacher who is explaining how she uses it in her physics class, also, just says that the much collaboration between teachers and administrators is one of the huge reasons why this has worked. This again is something that I strongly feel in and believe in my own opinion. As it is stated here, that not every district has the resources to properly train teachers to use the devices students will bring in, especially those that have already faced large budget cuts. That is just, I think that's where a lot of it lies in hand. If you cannot properly train your teachers, and because of budget cuts or for whatever reason you don't have the knowledge in the district, I can't say that BYOD would be something that I would strongly encourage or support in some school districts. Just because of that simple fact, as it goes on here, another very important, and I like the way they quoted it here, that tossing teachers into a BYOD environment without any training wouldn't be very effective. That's exactly how I see it. It would just be bringing devices to school, and what's behind it, the teachers need to be trained in that. So I did like how this article outlined that point of embracing BYOD in the classroom. Now we're moving on to some of the pitfalls as the article continues on. We heard from the teacher in physics and how she uses it, and it talks about the positives again of it, enhancing that education process and not having idle time for the kids and allowing that flipped classroom to be happening, which are all very good, positive, engaging, and motivating for the classroom and for the students. But you also have to look at the other side of, okay, what could be some possible pitfalls? There are pitfalls. There are always pros and cons to things. The number one would again be the teachers not being educated, the teachers not being trained. They also mentioned in this article that it may not work as people planned, if the teachers aren't trained, and the teacher will probably get blamed. That's, again, as a teacher myself right now, that is where I would have to have a lot of background and knowledge and trainings and information to really fully buy into this myself, just because I wouldn't want that falling back on me, as I think most teachers would even themselves. If it's not working, you take the blame yourself and you feel very much that it's on your shoulders. Another quote that I love in here is that it's not just fair that schools invite students to bring these devices and expect student achievement to improve just because these technologies are in the classroom. So true. Whether that's the parents thinking that, the teachers, the administration, you can't just put these in the classroom, have the students bring them, and expect all education to just improve. Not going to happen. Again, going back to a lot of the policies, the procedures, the teacher training, the student training. There's so much more to it. Another pitfall that they mentioned here, the increase in the digital divide. And I guess I kind of didn't look at it the way that this article brought it about, and that was how the Charlie Osborne went on to quote here that forgetting being teased for clothing choices, now perhaps it's because the child cannot afford the next gen iPad, or the phone that they have is only a Nokia. that, I can really see that happening as schools take on this initiative, um, because I can see that just as, I guess, other things would come about in the school. Again, not having the brand name clothes. Um, some of the students aren't going to be able to afford that that iPad or, the Apple laptop or whatever the case may be, and that may create more of a digital divide. Again, something to think about. Cyberbullying was another one. I do think that as parents, cyberbullying and the social media parts would be a big pitfall, a big part of this program that may come about for many parents questioning, how is this going to be controlled? Um, Again, this is all coming back to what kind of support do you have in your networking? Um, what kind of policies do you have that the students are going to be signing in their acceptable use policies, which is where the article goes on next to, thinking about those acceptable use policies, or some call them the responsible use policy, where students are responsible for ethical and healthy use of online content. This is a whole process. I mean, if you're going to be doing this at the high school or middle school level, I just think of it as going back to elementary. You cannot just put these devices in these kids' hands and expect them to learn, or even expect them to get their learning enhanced. These are tools and these are resources, but we as the teachers, we as the educators are going to have to create that environment of how to use these tools and resources. Two major skills that I think are just part of the 21st century skills, and are part of our world today. That critical thinking and digital literacy. Again, as an elementary teacher, I see how all of this combines, or how all of this can relate directly to how you go about teaching elementary students. You can't just give them something and expect them to create, to collaborate. You have to teach them how to do those things. And as a school as embraces the BYOB, they're going to have to teach the students how to become critical thinkers with these tools, and how to have digital literacy with these tools, and how to become responsible for ethical and healthy use of online content with these tools that they have for learning. I really think that that is a way that you have to look at things. Overall, this article, again, I think did a great job of explaining, giving examples of positives, but then also coming on the opposite side of it and saying these are some pitfalls, and then going on to say these are things that you need to pay attention to, and these are areas of where, if your school is thinking about the BYOD initiative, this is where you really need to put a lot of time and effort into establishing these acceptable use policies and things as such. So I think this article just really did a good job of opening my eyes to the BYOD model.